Well, good morning again, class. This is my second attempt at publishing a weekly video, so I apologize for the technical difficulties. They probably move in two directions. First of all, I don't know what's happening with trying to get it uploaded and it not working, and the other major issue is my technological ignorance. So it could be just user error rather than just simply technology, but needless to say, I'm giving this another shot. Obviously, most of you have probably seen that your discussion board 2 grades are up. By and large, there was improvement across the board, so well done. Just continue to work hard at those discussion boards. Did want to make just a couple of comments about the discussion boards. The first is this: when you reply to your students, make sure that you reply to 2 different questions, and it would probably be best if you also replied to 2 different students. So reply to 2 different questions and 2 different students. That will really eliminate any overlap. Plus, it's just simply a part of the instructions if you look at the course content. But that would really help out. The other thing is, I want to make sure that you all realize that every single title in a footnote must be italicized every time. So there seems to be a lot of inconsistency with just italicizing the titles. Obviously, with a journal, the title of the article goes in quotation marks, and the title of the journal is italicized. If you look at the style manual, you'll find examples of all of them, but also Turabian goes into great detail. So that's a wonderful resource that you should be aware of. Also, I took a look at just the quiz grades, and I have to say, across the board, generally speaking, those were extremely good grades. Now, I know that some of you did not do as well as you would have hoped, but you still have time to make up ground, and certainly now that you have 1 quiz under your belt, you'll be able to do much better on the next 3. But really, generally, there were probably more grades in the 90s than any class that I've ever had for the first quiz. So great job, really, that's awesome. Okay, so we look forward to this week, right? And again, want to just highlight a couple of the things with each of the questions, and they're pretty straightforward. I think in many ways this week's discussion board is a little easier just because the questions, a couple of them at least, are very straightforward and very easy just to kind of line out, but you just have to make sure you do it correctly. The first has to do with, what exactly is the synoptic problem? What are the synoptic gospels? What are the synoptic problem? And you just got to make sure that you define that very well. But also note, there's not just differences, but obviously there's similarities. So note not only the similarities, but the differences among the synoptic gospels. Also, just answer each one of the parts of that first question. But that's kind of the thrust of that one. Also, the second one has to do with just simply listing and providing a thorough definition of each of the various types of explanations for the synoptic problem. Now, they're all there. They're all in the book, and there's certainly, with your other textbook, Rethinking the Synoptic Problem, there's going to be a lot of depth of understanding in that resource. So make sure you define each of those thoroughly, and then at the end, it asks you to state which one you think best resolves the synoptic problem and why. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. So just make sure you do that well. And then the last one has to do with form criticism, source criticism, and redaction criticism. It basically is asking you to define those 3 criticisms, and so just do so thoroughly. The main thing, I guess the difficult thing with this question is you might have to look in a couple different places for the good definitions of those 3 criticisms. I think you can find them. Make sure you explain it very well so that I know that you know exactly what each criticism is. And then there's a few questions at the end of that at the end of that question. For example, which is how are they different, obviously, which is most useful for addressing the synoptic problem. So read carefully to understand which one would be most useful for that. And then there's another question, so just make sure you answer all of them as thoroughly as possible. I know that there's been some concern over, word counts, going way over word counts. Certainly, I'm not that concerned about you going over the word requirement. I'm more concerned about you not having enough, because you have to have, to answer these questions reasonably, you have to at least have, 500-600 words. Now, per question, 400 to 600 words is reasonable, but a lot of it just simply depends on the nature of the question. So don't be too worried about going over, or even way over. Just don't write a small novel for each one. You don't need to write 1,000 words per question, but make sure you do answer it thoroughly and adequately, sticking to the points. Just don't go off from the main points of what that question is asking. And you guys, you do fine. You guys are really getting the hang of it and doing a great job. So just keep working hard. You guys are on your way. Let me say just one more thing, and that has to do with the paper, really the intertestamental paper. This is, I know that I may sound like a broken record, but the fact is that paper is going to be due before you know it. And so just let me encourage you to do some research now. Start lining out your sources, because you need at least 5 of them. But really 5 is not adequate, quite honestly. It's the requirement, but you really need probably 7 to 8, maybe even 10 sources to really help you provide depth of research in this kind of paper. Don't make 2 mistakes. One is, just quoting the textbook for the historical overview of this period. That's a big mistake, because the textbook doesn't address all the details of that period. Other sources would be very, very helpful in helping you to give a historical overview of that period. Also, when you come to your second section, which you choose a person or a movement or an ideology, or and you want to write on that, make sure, this can really help you a lot in the paper. Find a couple of sources that deal specifically with that person or that ideology or that movement. That will really provide a lot of depth to your paper and to your research. So just a couple things to keep in mind. But listen, start researching, start reading, start taking notes, at least a little bit every week, so that when it's due, the week that it's due, you won't be panicking like I find some students do. So if you have any questions, listen, I'm here. I want to be a resource to you. I want to be helpful. I'm, as I've said, I'm your biggest cheerleader. I want you to succeed. And so, if you have questions about how you can do that, just simply shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of this week, and hey, I hope this works.